I think we have the benefit for the next couple of years of knowing that we're operating under a pro-business administration. And so from a federal regulatory compliance perspective, I think we're going to see a degree of stability.
Well, hello and welcome to Transportation Nation. Here we are, Caitlyn. Today we have a pretty special guest with us today. Seth Millican with the GMTA here in Georgia is with us today. He is the president and CEO, and we're excited he's here.
Yes, Seth. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Transportation Nation.
Appreciate y'all having me. Great opportunity.
Well, I want to read a little bit about you for our listeners, if that's okay. Then we'll just get right into it. So Seth Millican, as Lee said, is the president and CEO of the Georgia Motor Trucking Association based in Marietta, Georgia. Prior to joining the GMTA, Seth served as the executive director of the Georgia Transportation Alliance, which is an affiliate of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. Seth has also worked as a contract public affairs and political consultant, as well as a staff member in the Georgia State Senate. So a very impressive resume. So Seth, we got to read a little bit about you. So can you share with us the mission behind the GMTA and what y'all do in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think a great place to start for a conversation like this, because everything for us as a trade association, everything starts with a mission, right? 93-year-old trade association, one of the oldest state trucking associations in the country, celebrating. Actually, this will be our 94th year.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, been around for a long time. I mean, just for comparison, the Georgia Chamber has been around just over 100 years. So kind of an institution in terms of business advocacy groups in Georgia. And it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, trucking is a huge industry in Georgia. 1 out of 12 jobs in Georgia is tied to the trucking industry. About 350-something odd thousand people in Georgia work in the trucking industry. So it makes sense. And so for us as an organization, and I'm just going to read this because I think this really is what we're all about as an association. Our goal is to serve our members, our industry, and the citizens of Georgia by shaping a legislative and regulatory environment. I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, that focus on advancing safety, productivity, and efficiency, promoting the continued success of Georgia's truckers, owners, operators, carriers, suppliers, and consumers. And I think this is a big one for us too, increasing awareness of trucking's critical role in Georgia's economy.
Love that last piece.
Yeah. Anybody that's been to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, some sort of political event or whatever, over the last 5 or 10 years in Georgia, you've heard this. Georgia's the #1 state for business. And we talk about that a lot. And it's a wonderful thing for those of us that live here. So for us as a trade association, we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about how important trucking is to being the #1 state for business in the country.
Yeah, very nice.
So that's our mission. That's what we wake up thinking about every day.
Yeah, we have one of the largest ports in this state. So, that's amazing that is such a high initiative, for the state of Georgia.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is your second year as being the president of the association. So what challenges are you facing coming into this new position, it being your second year? And what vision and goal do you have for the association moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd be remiss if I did not recognize that Ed Crowell, who was the CEO for 32 years prior to me being here, Ed's kind of an institution in the trucking association world and did a great job really positioning the trucking association to grow into the future with Georgia's economy. And again, we'll talk more about this here, I think, later in the conversation. But Georgia is a place of tremendous opportunity for the trucking industry. If you talk to the folks over at Georgia DOT, they will tell you that their projections are that cargo and freight volume in the state of Georgia, moving through the state of Georgia, is going to go up 91% between 2025 and 2050.
Why are they saying that? Just
Georgia is one of the fastest growing states in the country. We're growing by roughly 120,000 people a year. So by the 2030 census, we will likely be the 5th largest state in the country. Like, everybody wants to live in Georgia, right? Great education, great healthcare options, great quality of life, low taxes. They're continuing to go down. That's been a priority for our governor and for our legislature. Like, legitimately, everybody wants to live in Georgia. So,
and the weather's not bad either.
No, the weather's not bad, except the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We always get, it feels like we always get those 2 weeks, some point like mid to late January. It's like, all right, we got it behind us. Now we can move on. But Georgia's growing quickly. You just mentioned the Port of Savannah, which is the fastest growing port in the entire United States. So we've got a lot going on from an economic development standpoint. So, as to your question, Lee, I think what are we thinking about? What are the priorities? We want to be a trade association that's focused on positioning our industry to take advantage of that opportunity. And we're kind of at a unique moment in time where we've got this tension between, we're in year 3 of a freight recession. We're hoping, and I think there's some positive signs we're seeing out there. We're hoping that's going to turn here pretty soon. But how do we position our members to survive that recession, continue to be able to run their businesses, but then turn and be able to capitalize on that opportunity into the future? So I think for us, the challenge is identifying what services do we provide and can we provide as a trade association to help folks be able to move out of this recession and then be in a position to take advantage of that growth opportunity into the future. We will talk more about this later, I think. But one of the things that we did last year was we did a very, very thorough strategic planning process for the association. That started with talking to our members and other members of the trucking industry and just ask them the question like, hey, what's keeping you up at night? What's your challenge? What are you working on? And so, and here's what we got back. Number one for trucking companies in Georgia is rising insurance costs. And I know we're going to talk about tort reform later, so I'm not going to get into that right now, but rising insurance costs, traffic congestion. Y'all are
welcome to Henry County,
geographically located right in the most congested area in Georgia, which is also the number 1 quarter in the country for traffic congestion.
You said number 1?
Number 1 in the country.
Wow. In the country.
In the country.
Oh, my word.
It is the most congested quarter in the country, right? So traffic congestion, huge issue.
And that's not the ranking we want.
No, it's not, right? We brag about rankings, but I think we also have to be honest about the rankings when they say, hey, we need to make some changes. We need to make some investments. And we'll talk more about some of Governor Kemp's plans for this corridor here in a little bit. Data competitiveness is a concern for a lot of our members. Image problems. I think we're going to talk about that in the next question. New technology, rising business costs, and driver shortages are all things that the members and because we surveyed a lot of non-members as well. These are the things that folks are thinking about. And so that's going to drive everything we do, from events and programs to education and compliance offerings to how we advocate down at the Capitol. We're going to be focused on these issues right here because this is what our members say, hey, this is what's important to us.
And I think we would agree to all those statements. So that's awesome that's in y'all's strategic planning initiative.
Well, that's cool you had the strategic planning, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the carriers had an opportunity to really share what they were
absolutely
what they need from you, and which they did. So
absolutely.
That's great that you did that.
And I will tell you, as we went through that process, I had one-on-one conversations with a lot of carriers, executives and leadership, just kind of saying, hey, what's on your mind? What keeps you up at night? And the things that some of those carriers identified were very surprising to me. A lot of times my reaction was, wow, I'm surprised that a carrier of your size or that has been around as long as you have are struggling with something like this. But that was great feedback. That helps us really kind of refine what we're doing as an association and make sure that we're meeting that need. Because we don't want to be wasting time and resources providing something that folks don't need or are not going to use, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess to one of your points here, one of our questions for you is, there's this growing tension right now around the driver's license, the immigration status. So how is that affecting Georgia carriers? And then what are some of the things that maybe you're hearing at the Capitol around that?
Yep. Great question. Definitely top of mind. And I will say, and I mentioned this a while ago, image problems was something that was identified as we went through that survey process. I think it's incumbent on us to understand, in some ways, trucking does have an image problem, right? We have these big accidents that happen that get into the news. Nobody likes being stuck behind trucks on the highway and all these kind of different things. And I think part of that is there is a disconnect between the average consumer or voter and the role that trucking plays in the economy. You like that Amazon package to be on time, think a trucker, right? Nothing goes into your home that has not touched a truck at some point. So I think number one, it's incumbent upon us as an industry to do a better job telling our story, right? Because there are so many companies that are doing it the right way, that are serving their communities. They are safe, they are compliant, they are investing in the future, they are investing in their employees, and we need to tell that story. Having said that, there are bad actors in this industry. I don't think anybody would deny that. And so there has been an effort with the TAEC, which is the Trucking Association Executive Council. So there's a group of me and all of my counterparts from across the country, and we meet periodically during the year to talk about best practices with the association, what policy issues are you dealing with, and this issue of English language proficiency, non-domiciled CDLs, and all the things that kind of go around that has really been a major focus for us over the last year. And in fact, we had a task force called the COBRA Task Force, cleaning out and banning rogue actors. And so we produced this report as something that I think 40-something state associations signed on to, including Georgia. And what we were trying to contemplate was, what is the constellation of things within the trucking industry, not just English language proficiency, that we can be aggressive and proactive as state trucking associations to address, and encapsulate this ELP challenge, but also some of the other things that we're seeing out there. So the English language proficiency in particular is a little different depending on where you are geographically in the country. Obviously, in places like Texas and Oklahoma and Arizona, there's more of a prevalence of that. Just for context, here in Georgia, we had roughly 88,000 inspections done in 2025. Of those 88,000, there were about 600 citations issued for lack of English language proficiency. And of those 600, I think 90 or so were actually referred to ICE for citizenship paperwork, immigration paperwork follow-up. So it is an issue in Georgia. In the broad spectrum of different things that our law enforcement guys are looking at, it's a small percentage.
Yeah.
So having said that, we do know that it is an issue that FMCSA is very focused on. It is something that CVE here in Georgia is very aware of, and they're being very intentional and strategic in how they address that. We are seeing some discussion at the Capitol this year about this issue. Senator Jason Dickerson from Cherokee County, who's a former trucker, former member of GTAs, has legislation that would do two things to kind of address this issue. The first thing it would do is tie a non-citizen CDL expiration date to the expiration date of their immigration paperwork. Mm-hmm. So if their work permit or their visa expires, then their CDL automatically expires as well. The second requirement in his legislation is that if someone who is a non-citizen moves with a CDL from another state to Georgia, they have to retake the skills test here in Georgia before they can receive a Georgia CDL.
That's good.
So we're grateful for what they're doing there. We think that's a common sense approach to try to address some of these issues. The last thing I'll say about this is we are also hyper vigilant about what this type of legislation can grow into. There are currently bills in Tennessee and Florida right now they're coming from a good place, right? Folks are trying to address some of these rogue actor issues. But in doing so, they have created a whole new level of civil and legal liability for trucking companies. New causes of action. It's like Christmas morning for the trial lawyers. And I think we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. But what we want to make sure here in Georgia is that we're adequately addressing the challenge, but we're doing it in such a way that we're not opening our members and our carriers up to new causes of action and new areas of risk. And so that's a needle that we're going to be focused real carefully on how we thread this year.
Well, I know that Trump has really been, and in the administration's, from what we understand, is really on top of this because of those accidents, Seth. I mean, you watched them. You've got these, folks that are not supposed to be here, and they're driving, and the carriers are not doing their due diligence to make sure that these drivers can speak English and
read the signs.
I mean, it's just it's insane. We got to protect our motoring public, right? That should be your responsibility, ours, and your association. So as the carriers are working through this, how are they dealing with the capacity issues? Because we understand that some of these carriers are having to let a lot of drivers go because they're not meeting these regulations. So how are the Georgia carriers dealing with all of this that you talk about?
That's a great question. I think the number one way I would describe the carriers are dealing with this well is they're being proactive. If you wait until there's a violation or there's a citation or there's a situation that occurs, you're going to be behind the eight ball. And I would encourage any carrier in Georgia. I was just with Major Montgomery from Commercial Vehicle Enforcement and his leadership team last week. If you are concerned about equipment or training or capability or whatever it is, reach out to us at GTA or reach out to your local post commander with Commercial Vehicle Enforcement. They will come out and do a voluntary inspection for you. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. It gives you kind of an objective view of where things are with your fleet, with your drivers, with your workforce, and your preparedness to be out on the road. So I think the number one thing I would say is just be proactive and don't wait until there's a situation that pops up, because then you're reacting, right, instead of acting. In terms of the capacity issue, this kind of gets into another thing that we're very focused on at the association. 45% of Georgia's truck drivers are 55 or older. We're very aware that there's kind of a potential looming workforce cliff.
We're getting older,
right? We're all getting older. And
it's hard to bring drivers in that want to drive today. The younger,
That's right. And so we're going to be very focused, I would say, over the next 18 to 24 months in developing some programs through our foundation. We have a foundation at the association that's really focused on this workforce development piece. And I don't have the answers yet, but we know that as a looming challenge, and that's something that we're going to have to address.
We've been talking about that for years.
Yeah.
I mean, as a state, a state issue, like you said, and then internally for us, that's about the average age of our drivers as well. Yeah, so
that's right.
And they're leaving. They're going to leave eventually. They're going to retire. So we got to
backfill that.
We got to figure out how to get the young people involved in trucking.
That's right.
I know when I was growing up and stuff, trucking was a cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But now it's just evolved. The way that you're in it has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So that's a good segue to our next question, Seth. So I read recently that for the state of Georgia, we are getting one of the largest transportation and logistics training centers not too far from here.
Yep, up in DeKalb County.
Yeah. So can you share with us about that? I think that's so interesting and relates to the topic we were just talking about.
Absolutely. Well, one of the, I would say, undersung heroes, and we talked about why people want to move to Georgia. We've got a great university system. Go Dogs. Mm-hmm. We've got a great...
Just had to plug that in.
Had to plug it.
Had to do it.
We've got a great university system. One component of our education system in Georgia that does not get near enough credit is our technical college system. They do a great job identifying and filling that pipeline with folks that are going to be working in the trades. And quite frankly, as we think about the development of AI and all these things that are coming online, those are some of the careers that look to be the most sustainable into the future, right? AI is never going to plumb a house or wire a house or fix an HVAC or work on a diesel engine, right? So super excited about that. The fact that the technical college system now has a place. If you want to work in the trucking industry, you go here. Then you've got the ability to work, train as a driver, train as a diesel tech, train as a tire tech. And they have made it abundantly clear that their desire is to actually partner with business as they develop these programs. So I'm excited. Obviously having the facility and having the space has been a challenge for years. There aren't many other technical colleges that have the physical ability to offer these kinds of programs. So I think that's just step one. And it's obviously very new. They just opened a couple of weeks ago.
That's exciting.
That's what I was going to ask. Have they opened yet?
Wonderful. They just grand opening was a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm excited to see, Georgia Power was a big sponsor, and a couple of other business organizations in Georgia. I'm excited to see what that business partnership development looks like as they actually partner with businesses to build out the programs and the curriculums. I think it's going to be super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it will be good.
Yeah,
it will be good. So beyond immigration and licensing, what regulatory or safety issues do you see coming in 26 for the carriers? That we've talked about the licensing. So what do you see coming down the pike for our carriers that they need to understand that's coming, that they got to get ready for to make sure they're on top of their game?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say from a regulatory standpoint, at the federal level, you mentioned the current administration and their focus on some of those issues. I think we have the benefit for the next couple of years of knowing that we're operating under a pro-business administration. And so from a federal regulatory compliance perspective, I think we're going to see a degree of stability. I don't think it should be far from top of mind for many carriers to understand politics is very cyclical, right? And if there's a change in party in the next administration, we could see a pretty significant snapback effect from some of these changes that we've seen at the federal level, primarily because most of those have been done by executive order. A few have been done through congressional action, but not many. And so it'd be really easy for somebody to get elected to the White House after the next election, say, hey, we don't like any of that stuff they did. We're going to ratchet that all back. So I think that's a midterm concern. There's really kind of two things that I think about. Tort reform is one. And obviously we at GTA, on behalf of our leadership and the entire industry in Georgia, are incredibly grateful to Governor Kemp, Speaker Burns, Lieutenant Governor Jones, and our legislature for what they did last year with Senate Bill 68 and 69. Pretty transformative from a civil litigation, civil justice perspective in Georgia. Tort reform is an evergreen battle. Though, right, we were number one in the country for balanced tort reform laws in 2005, which was the last time we passed major tort reform in Georgia. And over time, the plaintiff's bar was able to just chip away over time, a little bit here and a little bit there, to where we were at the top of the judicial hellhole list 2 years ago, right? So obviously we have now made tremendous strides at having more balance in the civil justice system. But I think as a business community and for the trucking industry in particular, we have to be vigilant about that, protecting those reforms that were passed and that progress that was made last year. That's going to be an evergreen battle for us. The second thing that I would say that has grown significantly, not just in importance to the trucking industry, but it's changed pretty dramatically over the last couple of years in the way it is done, and that's cargo theft. There's a lot of conversation at the federal level about this. There's several pieces of legislation in process in Congress right now that would address this. But the level of sophistication with which these criminal actors have been able to grow and develop how they get a hold of cargo is pretty astounding. We pretty quickly transitioned over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years from your traditional kind of smash and grab kind of deal where you've got really smart computer guys, way smarter than I am, in foreign countries that are manipulating the system such that you have a legitimate trucker that shows up to a legitimate operation thinking they're picking up a legitimate load and taking it to a legitimate customer, but that legitimate customer is actually waiting to carry that load off, and it disappears into the ether. And all of this is done digitally. All of this is done electronically, where folks are buying and selling and substituting DOT numbers and all these different things. So we are a part of a couple of task forces here in Georgia thinking through this issue and trying to figure out the best way to address that, but also try to understand where that's going to be in 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? And so I think from a regulatory standpoint, tort reform and cargo theft are areas that we're going to be really, really focused over the next couple of years.
Be sure to join us next time for part 2 of our conversation. In the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe to Transportation Nation Podcast.